congratulate my dear brother, Right Honorable Ihedioha, on this very auspicious celebration of your 60th birthday. See you, Emeka, and your dear wife. I said no because even from almost the near conclusions of the lead presenter, Bishop Kuka, he did say that democracy is work in progress. And even from our own experiences here in Nigeria, government in, government out, from 1999 to date, democratically elected, we have seen how government handled near similar issues differently. So I would like to say that it has more to do with the operators of a democratic system at a given time. If they play by the rules and they follow due process, democracy works. If they do otherwise, of course, it will be failure. So, in that case, I would say it falters, it gets up, it's work in progress. And I believe that we should not lose sight of the fact that democracy for now in Nigeria is the best system of government that we can have. And it is our responsibility as players to walk the walk and walk the talk and ensure that it works in Nigeria and in Africa.
Okay, fair enough. I was going to ask you one more question.
Well, if you look at what Bishop Kuka said, he says the work in progress. Let me follow my brother when he said about 1999. If you look at where we are today, it's like they started in 1999, laid the foundation. Some people came and took it to a decking, and some people were trying to raise it to first floor, and some people came and knocked everything down. That's the situation where we are now. Everything has been knocked down. Nothing works. And I'm somebody who can say this exemplarily. I became a governor through the courts when President Obasanjo and Atiku were in government. I did not pay the court one error. I was sitting in my house in the office, and the court declared me winner. When the governor is so serious, it can't happen in Nigeria today. When I was being impeached, the president sent people to come and intervene on my behalf. Ken Naman came begging House people not to impeach me. Today, the president impeaches the person. So that is the thing. So it's collapse. And then, they were begging my house not to impeach me. And they were PDP. I was in Africa. And they were begging. President was calling me and said, Peter, are you okay? Even when I was impeached, President Obasanjo called me and said, are you okay? Are you safe? When I go back from the court, when court eventually declared me under Ndimba, President Ihedioha called my phone in London and said, congrats. I said, President, I can't come back because, if I come back, these people, he said, tell me the flight for which you're coming back. And I told him, when I came in the first time, military people came to receive me at the airport. I couldn't believe it. I took it straight to him. Now the president will ask me not to come back here again. So he's saying, let's not talk about it. Let's talk about how we are going to do it. It's collapsing.
At democracy within the context of Africa, not just Nigeria. And I listened to the speaker where he talked about the challenges, but I'll go even further. I don't know whether many of us were aware of the meeting last week in Qatar between the president of Rwanda and the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo over the war that was going on there. But what I found very striking is how the two leaders could even meet. Because a few days before that meeting, the president of Rwanda granted an interview. And in that interview, he was very brutal on the president of the Republic of Congo. He gave an anecdote that there was this report that he read somewhere that An Italian man, an Italian who lived in Belgium, said that when he was in Belgium, that the current president of Democratic Republic of Congo, Felix, was a driver for him, a delivery driver. He was selling pizza. That's according to President Kagame. So he said, the Italian man said, when I heard that Felix became the president of Congo, I now, Felix couldn't deliver pizza. And I mean, it's President Kagame telling this story that you have a president in the Republic of Congo, a man who was so incompetent in his early life that he couldn't deliver pizza. That's the kind of president you have, the Republic of Congo has started deciding. I don't think that story is true, but that's beside the point. The point really is that there are challenges for every country when it comes to management of politics. What the lesson for us is democracy is about serving the public good. It's not about it. That's why I agree to an extent with what His Excellency said. It's a work in progress. But I also agree with what His Excellency said, because there are also challenges that we can see within our own environment. But we have to look at both sides, the challenges as well as the prospects, and the role we can play to make this democracy better. That's what I will say. Democracy per se is with the operators. We all know this time. I mean, the same democracy that people have been talking about in the United States for years, for decades, you can see the same democracy within the last. Can we say that the democracy we had in America in the last decades is the same democracy we have had in the last 2 months? That brings to us the role that individuals can play within a system. So it's not peculiar to Africa. It's about how do we ensure that the operators play by the rules. I think that for me is the critical issue.
I still would go back to the same point that even in Nigeria, there's more to do with the operators. I'll give you an example. Here in this room, seated, is former President Olusegun Obasanjo. Under his regime, state of emergency was declared in a number of states. The National Assembly, then we had Senator Pius Anyim as President of the Senate, and of course, Senator Ken Enamani and Senator David Mark. They all worked. And then, of course, Speaker Masari was also Speaker of the House of Representatives, Speaker Ete and Dongole and myself at the point. We all ensured that 2/3 majority of members of both chambers passed the emergencies in those times.
By 2/3, each member had to vote.
Each member had to vote. And you know that Parliament is guided by the Constitution, by its rules, and by precedents. In this same National Assembly, we have the same Constitution in a way, under Section 305. It has not been amended since the commencement of this democracy. We have our standing rules, and we have precedents of how 2/3 were able to be established in those instances where emergency was declared in Plateau, emergency was declared in Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe. And we stuck by the rules, and were guided by the Constitution. What happened in the last one? So I still insist that you need to check out the operators of the system.
Well, I will say to China is not democratic.
It isn't.
And I'm not going to compare ourselves with Singapore. It's a country of less than 5 million people. But I'll compare ourselves with Indonesia. Indonesia is 280 million. And coincidentally, the country with the highest number of Muslims. We should look at their democracy. They have what we call proportional representative. That is what I've always championed and what you do. You cannot have, go back, no country in the past 3 years conducted election had less than 30% of registered voters participate in the election, and they held it. Everyone was go and check from South Africa to Mexico to Indonesia. They were not less than 60%. Nigeria was 23% of registered voters. In that 23%, Nigeria is the only country where you can be declared a winner without receiving 50% plus one of the vote. Our own was 37%. And there's no proportional representation, which is why you can have opposition here. Because if you had that, what is said wouldn't have happened. Because the person there now have 37% of the vote, call it 40. In the Senate would have had 44 members. PDP, with their leader, would have had about 34 members, and Labour would have had 24. In fact, we should have actually formed government. You cannot have a minority person sitting in government with everything, chasing everybody out, destroying everything. We must change it and have proportional representation so that they give us solution. That is how it works. And when we do that, go and see it in Indonesia. In Indonesia, the president's party is not the leading party in the parliament, but they have proportional representative, which brings proper checks and balances. Like he said, it's the operators. That's why I said it's fair. His argument shows that it's failing, because the operators now have failed it. That is one go back, it is failing.
In Singapore, people easily have talked about Rwanda, for instance, as a model in Africa, because at least people believe that the system is working for the majority of the people. Incidentally, I've never been to Rwanda, but I hear a lot of good things about Rwanda. But there are also people who believe that Rwanda is not a model. So that tells you about the way people reason about this democracy thing. Yeah, it's working for the ordinary people, but the elite are also complaining that there are issues of human rights, there are issues of justice. So at the end of the day, there is no perfect democracy anywhere in the world. But what is essential is that government, by any means, must serve the public good. I think, for me, that is the message we should all take from here.